What up out there? Okay, so this is just gonna be a straight movie review, and I'm gonna give you guys some free uh, game about financing, economics, and how we can win this thing. This would be my bona fides to everyone out there. Okay, so as always, this is a SYSBM movie review. So here we go. The name of the film is called The Banker. It stars three of my favorite actors: Anthony Mackie, Samuel L. Jackson, or as I like to refer to him as the great Samuel L. Jackson, and my crush when I was a teenage boy, Nia Long. She is such an example of a woman, like a real woman, like if I had to marry someone, she's the embodiment of the woman I'm looking to marry. If I was to go back to that perspective, you know, I would throw it all away for a woman who embodies her presence. Well, from what I've seen of her on stage, but also, the few things that you do see of a person as an actor, you don't really ever really know them in their real life. But I mean, her portrayals have always been desirable for. She has always had desirable traits for a female. Okay, so I don't like to do spoilers. So I'm gonna try to just talk about what the gist of the movie is and how we can learn from this movie, because they give away a lot of great information, financial information in this film. Okay, so, and I don't know why I keep saying movie. Movie and film is not an interchangeable term. They're actually two different things. But okay, so this film is called The Banker. It's available on Apple Plus. I think it's Apple Plus, Apple TV Plus, but you can subscribe. It's like $6, $10. If you want to subscribe just to watch the movie, I recommend you do that, and then you can cancel your subscription. But I don't really get down with Apple like that. I'm not an Apple person, but it's on it. So I'm just gonna talk about how the movie opens, because this is important to black men, right? This is very important. So the movie opens with Anthony Mackie's character as a young boy, and this is I'll just tell you that this is a true story. This is a true story about two men who America refers to as Negro or colored in the 1960s, and they start a bank, and how they do it is exactly how I would have did it. They start a bank. So in the movie, Anthony Mackie, he plays Bernard Garnett, and the movie opens with him as a child, right? He's a child, and he's pretending to be a shoe shine boy in front of the bank, and he's eavesdropping on the conversations that the bankers, who are Caucasian men, have. And he gets shooed away, and his father comes and rescues him from that incident, and tells him that you're risking your life. You can get hurt. If Caucasians are paying attention to what you're doing, you can get hurt doing that. And he tells his father, "I just want to learn how they make money." Keep that thought in mind. This, as a child, he says, "I just want to learn how they make money." Keep that in mind. So this starts off to be basically his motto for life. He grows up, he stays frugal, He understands financing. He studies financing really good. And he decides that if he's going to see anything more in life, he has to go out west. So he decides to move out west with his wife, who's played by Nia Long. She's Eunice Garnett. And they go out west to get his fortune. Now, this is before housing acts and things like that to prevent discriminatory housing practices were in play. So he learns right off the bat while he's in LA that when it comes down to doing business, it's not about your acronym, it's about the color of your skin. And nobody wants to do business with him. So eventually, things fall into place. He becomes successful in real estate. He integrates a lot of neighborhoods on his own. And then he meets Joe Morris, who's played by Samuel L. Jackson's character, because Joe Morris had an acquaintance with his wife, who's played by Nia Long. And they form a very fragile business relationship because they're two individual men who are both successful and they have a different style of doing things, right? But to be honest with you, in my perspective, the character that Samuel L. Jackson plays, Joe Morris, his way works better than the character played by Anthony Mackie, the way he wants to do it. Where Anthony Mackie wants to be in front, Samuel L. Jackson's character, Joe Morris, prefers to be behind the scenes. And that's where they concoct the scheme. And the first thing they do is that if they're going to get money from the banks who won't give them a meeting, then they have to own the building. They figure out that they should own the building that the banks operate in. So this way they have unfettered access to the banks because they become the landlord. And it also shows the banks that they have a level of stability because now they can put the building that they own, that the banks do business in, up for collateral. So I get that part right there. And basically, just like with anything else, back in those days, the society wants to have a belief about black men in any era. And even though that belief is fake, it has to be perpetuated. No matter how it needs to be done, it has to be perpetuated that you are not capable of doing anything. And they're going to keep you in a place where you're going to get nowhere. And if you find a solution around that, well, guess what? They are going to put a stop to it. So what basically happened was that because they hired a white man to work for them, and they were making loans to black businesses and black homeowners, they felt that was criminal because obviously they wouldn't have got as far and been able to do as much if people knew that they were black men. Now, the character that Anthony Mackie plays, Bernard Gannett, he's a genius with the numbers. He knows the business numbers. He knows the numbers, man. It's all about the numbers at the end of the day. And he knows them off the top of his head, and that's very, very important. Very, very important. Now, I really enjoyed this film. And I enjoyed it so much, I made my nephew watch it with me because I think it's a film that every black boy needs to see. You can be successful beyond sports, beyond entertainment, beyond music. You can make it in this business world. Once upon a time, I had a chance. I could have ended up in Wharton Business School, which is Pennsylvania, University of Pennsylvania. It's one of the top business schools for MBAs, Master of Business Administration. I could have ended up there, but I took another path because the price was just too high, you know. But yeah, I mean, you can make it in this business world. I actually knew of a couple of brothers at the time that graduated from Wharton Business School, so they were already like in their 40s. I was like in my young 20s, pursuing my bachelor's, you know. But anyway, what I want to take away from this, what I want you to do is watch this movie. It should have been nominated for Best Picture of the Year, but as always, they found a way to keep it out of the limelight because it talks about a topic that at the time was very important to us. That was African Americans' ability to build wealth in this country. And if you look at one of my videos, I'll put a connection. I'll put it into the end of this. It's a monologue that Anthony Mackie gives as a portrayal of his character to Congress. So you can look this up. It is in the record. It's in the record. You can Google it, look it up. It's in the record. Because people don't understand what a home is and how home ownership, land ownership, how that works, right? A home is an asset. It's also a liability. But the thing about a home is that a home becomes a collateral asset. So you have different types of assets, right? You have assets. Think of a home as like a piggy bank. Once you get your equity in it and then you own it, it appraises in value for sure. It appraises in value, but also you can use it to borrow money against. And banks are more willing to give you money against a collateral asset like a home that you own. Because why? They know the home isn't going anywhere. It's always going to appraise in value. Also, you can also get a loan against the equity in your home, which is kind of like pawning your home. So you take out a second mortgage. You can get another mortgage on your home. That's a whole other instrument. It's kind of complicated to explain, but most people usually own their home. So what happens is, let's say, this is where black people are at, right? So let's say like our great parents bought a home and they own the home. Leave it to the family. It goes maybe 50 years later. The home is worth quadruple what they paid for it. Not only does the home serve as a base to build off of, because you no longer have to pay rent. See, that's the trick. When you no longer have to pay a mortgage or rent, I forgot what percentage of your salary goes towards rent and your mortgage. But when you no longer have to do that, when you no longer have to start from scratch, that is money now that you can save and put into other things, mainly financial instruments, right? And people think, well, you know, I don't want to play the stock market. I don't want to buy stocks. Stocks is a volatile instrument. It's not about being volatile. What it's about is it's about getting a higher return on your money than traditional savings accounts give you. Nothing beats the returns of the stock market. Okay? That's actually the job of the president, is to protect the stock market. Okay? Nothing beats the returns of the stock market. Also, when you put your money in the stock market, you have a level of liquidity. So in other words, right, you can sell your stock and you can raise capital like an ATM machine almost instantly with simply incurring a broker's fee. There's no penalties for anything else. Whereas with a savings account, if you go to a bank, and this is a known fact, they don't tell you this. If you go to a bank and you have a savings account and you're like, hey, I want to take out all the money and withdraw my savings account, the bank will pull out their terms and conditions and agreements paper, and they'll show you the fine print. And most likely the fine print is going to say how much you can take out within a certain period of time. Usually it's several hours. So every 48 hours, every 72 hours, you can only get so much money if your balance is above this amount. So obviously if you have a savings account, and let's say for example, your balance is over $100,000. Let's say your balance is $100,000. And in the fine terms and agreements, it says that you can withdraw you can withdraw the complete amount. You can withdraw the balance of your savings up to 50,000. After that, you can only take out the other 50,000 after whatever amount of hours. Let's say 124 hours. I don't know. 40 hours in a, I don't know how many hours it is in a day. 24 hours in a day times 5 is 20, 10, 125 hours. So maybe a week, they say, maybe 5 days. After that, you can get the other 50, right? And then there's a penalty and there's a fee and there's this and that. So it may cost you, it may cost you like $4,500 to withdraw all your money and close up your savings account. Now you're asking me, well, why is that? Well, that's because the bank doesn't have your money anymore. They don't have your $100,000. They're not sitting on it. They've loaned it out, and because they have to have a certain balance with their depositors, or it's a depositor's balance. They have to have a depositor's balance, meaning that it has to be for all the loans outstanding. They have to have equal amount of money deposited. They can't lend out more money than they have in their depositor's balance. So when you take that money out, that means that they have to call in. They have to call in short on some loans, which they don't like to do. Why? Because banks don't worry about the principal money. They worry about the interest. That's how they make their money, off of the interest. They never want you to pay the loan back. They want you to keep paying the interest. They never want you to pay the principal back. Why? Because at the end of the day, they want that asset too. That's why they gave you the loan. They didn't give you the loan without attaching something to it, like an asset. An asset could be a lot of different things, but your loan is attached to an asset. So they don't have your money, okay? They can't just give you your money. They don't have it. So that's why you keep your money in the stock market, so that you can move it around. You have a different level of liquidity. Also, taxes, for tax purposes, you can claim, I don't know if it's still around. It used to be called capital. It used to be called well, they started the capital gains tax because there was another version of the tax where you could actually write off your losses in the stock market. So here goes basically how the stock market works. Real simple. You buy a security, which is a stock. A security, you may buy it for $10. It may go up, it may go down. It doesn't really matter. At some point, it will be at a price that you will sell it at, and you either get your $10 back, or you get more than $10 back, or if you sell it for less than $10, and depending on your financial structure, you can deduct that from your taxes. So sometimes people have played with their taxes and they owe so much, they would intentionally take a loss by selling their stock in order to deduct that amount from having to pay the government. So did they lose money? Not necessarily, because it's money they don't have to pay the government out of their pocket. Right? So then they just take that money, they wait for the stock, or they find another stock, and they put it in and buy twice as many shares at a lower price stock, or they buy the stock again right back, and then guess what happens? The stock price goes back up, and then they have more shares. They have more money to buy the same adequate amount of shares. I don't know if people can follow that. It's kind of confusing, but that's where the capital gains started coming in, where they were charging people for actually making money and then cashing out. But that was also a way to protect the stock market, because see, that's where you have runoffs and things like that. That's like the opposite of a savings account. Unfortunately, unlike savings accounts, with the stock market, everybody can sell at the same time. There's no stopping people from selling. The only thing that happens is that as more shares come on the market for that stock, obviously the price goes down. So if you don't get in by the time everybody has sold out, you could be left holding the bag, which means you could be left holding a lot of worthless paper. But the important thing that we don't understand, that African Americans don't understand, that they understood in the banker, is you're trying to build wealth so that you can buy enough instruments of a stock. Enough financial instruments, primarily stocks, to then grow your money. To grow your money based on its capitalization. The money it makes doing other things in the economy. It's a lot of things it could be doing. It could be bonds. It could be investing in real estate. It could be lending money, subprime lending. It could be a lot of different ways to make money. But what people are doing that African Americans aren't doing, and we don't understand this, is that people are buying controlling interest in a corporation. Now you say, what is a controlling interest? Well, the other thing a stock gives you is it gives you a voting right. A right to vote. You get one vote for every so many shares. What these votes go towards, it could be a lot of different things based on the bylaws. I forgot what they call it, the corporate charter or whatever. But anyway, your vote can be used towards who sits on the board of directors, or who becomes CEO, who becomes the executives. Every year, a corporation gets all its members together, if it can, all its stockholders together, if it can, or every year they have what you call it's like basically an election for offices of the corporation. Each holder gets that many votes, and you vote for who you want to be. Now, you're asking me, where am I going with this? Well, where am I going with this is that what black people haven't understood is that if let's say we brought a company like I don't know, what's a company? I don't know, man. Let's say like we brought like Walmart, right? Like we brought enough shares in Walmart where we own 35% of the company, 45% of the company, right? Let's say you bought enough shares in Walmart. Let's say we caught Walmart. Let's say we got our money together. We caught Walmart, where Walmart stock takes a significant dip, that we can buy the target amount of stock. Maybe we want to buy 45% of the company. That can happen if we hit it right. If the price is right with the amount of money we have, we buy 40% of Walmart, right? We own 40% of Walmart. Now what happens? Okay? We have enough votes to put who we want in charge of the company. We put who we want in charge of the company. Why? Because now they're able to do what we want them to do with the company. Whether that's build new Walmarts in our neighborhoods, in our communities, hire our real estate, hire minority real estate companies, or just employ more African Americans. That's what a lot of races of people in America are doing that we're not even aware of. That's how they stay employed. They own significant voting shares in companies. Maybe they have a cartel type of setup, but they're buying significant shares in several companies. They're putting in key people in positions where they're like, okay, our mandate is going to be to hire so many Asians, or so many Caucasians, or so many Latins, etc., etc. And they're not thinking about hiring any African Americans. So when they talk about diversity, they don't necessarily mean. When the discussion of diversity started, it was supposed to imply hiring more African Americans, but that's not really what it means. Diversity just means not primarily hiring more Caucasians than already are there. So if the company has like 75% Caucasians, then the rest got to be non-Caucasians. doesn't mean all African Americans. It just means non-Caucasians. So diversity could mean a lot of things, and then you have so many loopholes with that. That's where affirmative action used to come into play. EEO, equal employment opportunity, used to come into play. But that only applied to federal contractors. That only applied to people who did business with the federal government. A private company that doesn't do business with the federal government is under no obligation to hire a quota. If they choose to do that, they do that for maybe some type of tax relief or some type of class action lawsuit or something like that. They don't voluntarily do that. But one way we can change the unemployment rate of black people in America is by owning a significant portion of these companies, where we can direct not only their hiring practices, but the markets that they enter. Okay? So we can control what markets they go into. If Starbucks is only building on one side of town, if we own enough Starbucks, we can say, hey, Starbucks, you got to build so many. Our key leaders on the board, or our key leaders in the executive leadership, would be like, hey, we're going to open up Starbucks in urban, what they call urban markets, or low income markets, right? We're going to put a Starbucks there. And when they put a Starbucks there, guess what happens? Then they hire people from the neighborhood. When they hire people from the neighborhood, guess what happens? Those people spend their money in the neighborhood, right? They're not doing poverty crimes. They're spending their money in the neighborhood, and they're helping other people who may sell a meal, or may sell some fashion wares, not do poverty crimes too. And then that person may then start another business independently, and then hire people. And it's just goes on and on and on like that. That's why I put this circle here, right? It's a self-perpetuating system. But here goes the thing: we have to get the businesses that are capitalized into our communities to hire us. So that's why you really invest in stocks. That's why as African Americans, we really should be investing in stocks. My opinion is there really is no personal wealth to be gained in stocks. I mean, you gain wealth by stocks, but you don't gain wealth by stocks that way. What you do is you keep your money ahead of the inflationary rate. You have liquidity. You have access to funds easily for anything that you want to do. And you also have, of course, the most powerful thing. You have that voting power, right? Which a lot of African Americans that own stock don't even vote in their corporate elections. I forgot what it's called. It's something that they do every year. It's called something, but they don't even vote. They don't even vote, or you don't even run as an officer of the court. I mean, you don't even run as an officer of the corporation. Understand, some corporations only allow you to run as an officer if you have stock and be on the board and things like that. Sometimes the corporation elects the board, and the board hires the executive officers. Sometimes you can run on the ballot of the corporation and make yourself the CEO if you have enough votes. You control the direction of the company. And sometimes, the board, sometimes you get elected, then the board has to elect you. It's a lot of things. It's a lot of things. But because a corporation is an actual public entity, it's not a person. It can really be controlled by anyone. You just have to get in there and get the right amount of shares. So sometimes you have weak corporations, right? They have what you call weak corporations. Weak corporations is where several people have controlling interest in the corporation. It's not one person. A strong corporation, and this you probably see this on Shark Tank a lot. A strong corporation is when one person controls 51% or more, sometimes 50%, but really 51% or more of the corporation. One person owns 51% or more of the corporation. See, that's why we don't even know when we talk about Amazon. We don't even know if Jeff Bezos owns a controlling interest in his company. I doubt it. He probably doesn't own a controlling interest in his company. He's probably one of several, but he has a lot of influence with his cartel. So if it's like if it's like 12 people, if it's like 12 controlling interest groups, and Jeff Bezos is one of those groups, he may have influence with the other five, right? So it's a tie. It's 6 on 6. But no one person can really say, no one person can really have a real say in what goes on, because it's like how Steve Jobs lost Apple. Even though he started Apple, once he took Apple public, people brought enough shares, a controlling group came in, and they said, you know what, Jobs, you're out of here. And there was nothing he could do about it, because he was part of a controlling group, but the controlling group no longer bended to his. He was part of a controlling group, and it was several other controlling groups, but he lost influence with the balance of the controlling groups. So they all said, you know what, Jobs, you're out of here. And then what happened? They brought him back. And then he used his money when they brought him back. He gained his influence back, and he manipulated and did things and got back to where he was a single controller of the majority of the shares. So there's a whole lot of things that can go on. A little topsy-turvy, seesawing back and forth. It's very, very complex, but the main thing is that the banker teaches you about finance, economics in a way that you're not going to be taught. And they actually are showing you how to make money. Very, very simple way to make. They're actually showing you a very simple way to make money. And what that was, they started off in real estate, in apartment rentals, real estate purchases, basically being someone's landlord, so that you get the equity paid for. And then once your equity is paid for, then you take that portfolio of properties, and you take that and you go to the bank and you get more money, and you do your next move. And then their next move was they use that money to buy banks. People don't understand, when you buy a bank, you don't really buy a bank based on the depositors of the bank, and based on the depositor's balance. You buy a bank based on the amount of shares the bank has. So if the bank is privately held, if you can get someone to sell you a controlling interest of those shares, guess what? You own the bank. And that's it. You get the charter and everything that comes along with it. You can also start your own bank. I don't know what the fee is now. I know years ago it was like $75,000. You could get you a charter. You get a little market, and then you got to start getting depositors before you make loans. Unless you come in capitalized, you can make loans right away, and you're just trying to secure assets. But most new banks haven't started in a while. Most new banks will merge from several smaller banks, because when you get your charter for that region that you're going to operate in, you may be limited to a certain amount of miles. Literally, you may only be able to operate with 10 miles or a zip code, or just maybe one city. So if you buy a bank in Virginia and you guys merge, now you're in Virginia. You're just changing the name. But they already have a charter to operate in Virginia, and you're still in Manhattan, So that's how banks really grow. Bank of America is a good example of that. Wachovia is a good example of that. They picked up a lot of small banks to grow themselves across the nation. So that's all I got for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this commentary. Leave me any notes or any questions in the comments. If you get a chance to see The Banker, I'd love to hear what you say about it. This is a great movie to watch with your black sons or the black young males in your family. All right? And for me, it was the best picture of the year. I don't care what nobody says. All right? This is it for Black to the Film. I'm out. Peace.